Welcome to today's explainer. Usually we're diving into massive data sets or digging through these endlessly long research papers, right? But today is different. Our entire source material is exactly 12 words long. Just 12 words. It's a single, profound philosophical maxim about human potential. Now, it might be incredibly brief, but trust me, it is remarkably dense. Over the next few minutes, we're going to completely deconstruct this one sentence. We'll break down its underlying architecture, and I'll show you exactly how it maps out this fascinating psychological framework for human achievement. I'm absolutely pumped to unpack this with you, so let's just jump right in. Okay, here it is. This is our source text for today. You must expect great things of yourself before you can do them. Just let those 12 words sink in for a second. It sounds simple, right? Honestly, almost like a cliche you'd find printed on a coffee mug or one of those motivational posters in a corporate break room. But when you actually stop and analyze the syntax, the actual underlying structure of this statement, you realize pretty quickly it's not a platitude at all. It's a rigorous sequence of events. It's mapping out a series of cognitive and physical steps that literally cannot be bypassed if you want to achieve anything of significance. Okay, let's dive right into this. The very first question we have to ask ourselves here is, why? Why does the physical action actually require the mental expectation? I mean, notice how the source doesn't say you might expect, or, it'd be really nice to expect. No, it links the physical doing inextricably to the mental expecting. It's basically proposing that there's this strict, almost mechanical relationship between what happens inside your head and what eventually materializes out there in the physical world. It sets up an equation, right, where one side absolutely has to be balanced by the other. So let's look at how this equation actually works in practice. Let's zoom in right at the beginning of the sentence. You must expect. Look really closely at that word must. It's an imperative. In the structural architecture of this quote, expectation isn't just some passive hope. It's not a wish. It's definitely not a daydream. You don't just, sort of hope great things happen for you. You must expect them. It's framed as this rigorous, active, completely non-negotiable requirement. The text is telling us straight up, without this initial forceful mental posture, the entire rest of the formula just falls apart. It completely collapses. See how the word expect is functioning here? It's basically a demand. An active prerequisite. It is the mandatory mental setup you need to literally trigger a future reality. Think about it practically, kind of like a blueprint. You don't just lay down a concrete foundation and cross your fingers, hoping a house magically appears, right? No. You draw up the precise dimensions because you expect to build it. In the context of our source material, expecting is that psychological groundwork. The author is laying down the law here. This cognitive event is the absolute foundational building block of all achievement. If you skip this mandatory mental setup, well, absolutely nothing else can follow. So, what exactly is the target of this mandatory expectation? Great things. Our source explicitly qualifies the magnitude of the expectation here. It doesn't just tell you to, expect things or expect completely average results. By dropping the word great right in there, the text introduces a really vital principle of scale, because the scale of your mental expectation directly sets the ceiling for what can actually be achieved. If the expectation is the blueprint, then great things dictates the size of the building. You literally cannot construct a skyscraper using blueprints meant for a backyard shed. The magnitude of the internal thought absolutely dictates the maximum magnitude of the external result. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is the direction this massive expectation is pointed, of yourself. Do you see what that does? It shifts the narrative entirely inward. It's a demand for radical, uncompromising self-accountability. You aren't expecting great things from the world, or from your circumstances, your boss, your peers, or even just dumb luck. No. The source text firmly and unapologetically places the entire burden of expectation squarely on your own shoulders. It completely isolates the individual as the sole engine of this process. It's a profoundly empowering pivot in the sentence, but wow, is it incredibly demanding. And this brings us to a core duality. We've got two very distinct realms operating here. On one side, we have expecting great things, which is entirely an internal mindset, totally inside your head. On the other side, we have doing great things, which is the external reality, the physical world. This entire 12-word sentence is essentially a how-to manual on crossing the chasm between these two realms. The mind is serving as the necessary bridge to the physical results. Basically, you're tasked with generating a reality internally so vividly and with such absolute certainty that it eventually just spills over into the external world. Which brings us to what honestly might just be the single most important word in the entire quote, before. This right here is the crucial chronological pivot of the sentence. This one tiny little word dictates a super strict order of operations. You cannot do and then expect. The internal reality absolutely must precede the external reality. And our source material is remarkably strict about this. Before means there is a fundamental law of time at play here. The sequence cannot be reversed, it can't be skipped, and you can't just try to do both at the same time. The order is entirely locked. Let's actually visualize that chronological imperative, just to really cement it in our minds. It breaks down into this mandatory two-step process. Step 1, establish the internal expectation. Step 2, execute the external action. The sheer brilliance of the original text is how cleanly it establishes this dependency. Step 2 is completely locked away. It is totally inaccessible until step 1 is finished. So, if you're struggling with step 2, actually doing the great things, the source implies that the failure isn't actually in your capacity to act. Nope, actually scratch that. It's a failure in completing step 1. You just haven't fully and genuinely established that internal expectation yet. Let's move to the next part and see how this builds, because this dependency essentially maps out a literal journey across time. Phase 1 is the mental prelude. That's where you're setting the expectation, fulfilling the must-expect criteria we talked about. This then flows naturally into phase 2, the physical action, which is, the actual doing of the work. And that inevitably culminates in phase 3, the reality, where great things are definitively achieved. So the source text isn't just some static observation. It's a dynamic, moving timeline that takes us from the completely invisible realm of thought straight into the visible realm of physical manifestation. And that perfectly resolves our chronological arc, bringing us right to the final phrase of our source material: you can do them. This is it. This is the ultimate payoff. Notice the really specific use of the word can here. It denotes ability, capacity, and permission. By fulfilling the first half of the sentence, by genuinely expecting great things of yourself, you literally unlock the ability to do them in the second half. The physical output, the culmination of that initial mindset, is realized right here. The external doing is revealed to be nothing more than the physical echo of the internal mental expectation you already set in stone. So the crucial point is that when we look at the source as a complete whole, we aren't just looking at a nice, feel-good, inspirational quote. Not at all. We are looking at a precise, interlocking formula. Number 1, unwavering internal expectation, the must expect. Number 2, complete self-accountability, the of yourself. Number 3, strict chronological precedence, the before. And number 4, eventual external execution, the can do them. These 12 words structurally pave the literal way for achievement. It's a closed-loop system. The quality and the sequence of your input perfectly determines the reality of your output. All right, so we've successfully deconstructed the architecture of this incredible maxim. But listen, the real value of an explainer like this isn't just in analyzing a text. It's in actually applying its logic to our own lives. So I want to turn this directly back onto you as we wrap up today. Think about the absolutely biggest goals you have right now. Just picture them. Now ask yourself, are your expectations truly preceding your actions? Are you rigorously expecting great things of yourself right this second? Or are you just kind of waiting around to see what happens before you decide what you're actually capable of? Remember the core lesson here, guys. The blueprint must come before the building. Set the expectation first. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I challenge you to really examine your own internal expectations today. See you next time.